Welcome back. You're live with Expresso. We really do appreciate you joining us for the second hour of the show and another really interesting discussion. Time for another edition of our Wednesday favorites, our feature where we focus on sometimes the unconventional, maybe the understood or misunderstood side of law. It's called...
So now what?
So now what? What do we do? And we are calling on the legal guidance of our friend and expert in law, all-round nice guy, Director at Legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern. Eitan, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, gents. How are you both doing?
Very good.
You got the double bass on your voice there this morning, man. Eitan. We like it. We like it.
Serious business. Yeah.
It's quite early.
Well, listen, today's question is, I'm experiencing delays on a delivery that I'm expecting, so now what? So we'll be taking a look at the legal side of the impact of COVID-19 that it has had on the delivery service. So let's start off by examining what are the standard legal expectations when it comes to items being delivered. For example, what are the policies around how late a package can be, or the company's obligation towards delivering the package to you no matter what, Eitan?
Okay, cool. So, delivery is like a central part of our commerce and contract, and we've seen this especially during the COVID pandemic. And our delivery drivers out there are actually the unsung heroes of our economy. So, depending on the nature of the transaction, your delivery often marks the final part of the transaction. Once that happens, it's all done. But there are no specific laws out there around timelines or pricing or delivery, expectations. It's rather up to the specific terms and conditions of whatever company you're ordering from to decide, what the rules are going to be. So if you want to understand the rules about your delivery, the timeline, quality, safety procedures, anything else like that, you need to check the terms of service on that company's website. And that will tell you everything you need to know.
And boy, haven't we been relying on delivery services now more than ever with COVID-19. We know the pandemic and the ensuing lockdown has had a massive effect on how these delivery services and policies operate, some improving, some being forced to improve and kind of evolve overnight, others being hindered. What has the effect been of the pandemic on our delivery services, do you think, from your perspective?
So, look, delivery is actually, delivery transactions are incredibly old. It's over 2,000 years old. They actually originate in Rome, in the Roman era. So it's a pretty old service. And it obviously, the pandemic has changed the nature of the contract and one of ordering things and receiving whatever you're paying for. So it hasn't changed that. But delivery, but the pandemic has had a change in some of the terms that the companies might be under. So, that might be under things like the delivery times, or the curfew might have affected how long you're going to have to wait for your package, or the overburden on delivery companies might mean you're waiting longer. So these things are be changing. And again, if you are a picky customer and you really want to know the details of your package arriving, you can check the company's terms of service on the website.
Read the small print,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last week we also spoke about how getting compensated by your employer for getting infected with COVID-19 in the workplace is quite a difficult process. So does this change if you're a delivery employee and you catch COVID-19 while in the field?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. I'm really glad we're all starting to interact with this. And so just because you're an employee and not in a building, it doesn't mean that the normal rules relating to labor don't apply to you. So a workplace can refer to an office building, but it can also refer to wherever you are sent to work, and that could be a scooter or a motorbike. So regardless of the semantics, employees are entitled to equal rights, and therefore delivery drivers are entitled to the same rights as office-bound employees. Of course, rules will differ between offices, deliveries, and potentially more dangerous jobs, such as being a security guard, but that doesn't mean that an employer can put a delivery driver into an unreasonably dangerous situation. So still, the conditions for delivery still have to be within a reasonable safety level for people to be able to do that job legally.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from the fact that we can spare a thought for our delivery guys, the men and women that have been keeping the country going while we've all been on lockdown. We're going to continue this discussion in just a moment. We'll be back in a moment figuring out, so now what, with our lawyer, Eitan Stern.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked. We are going to continue now our discussion with lawyer and director at legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern, as we take a look at the legal side of the impact that COVID-19, the pandemic, has had on delivery services. And obviously, so many more people relying on. My mom, for instance, lives off delivery only now. She hasn't...
Oh, 100%.
You know, completely. And she's really good at adapting in that way. But so many people have been reliant on those delivery services. So obviously the game has changed quite dramatically. Eitan, welcome back.
Cool. All I can really think about is toasted cheese sandwiches right now.
I know, don't worry, you're not alone there, buddy. You're not alone.
Topic, what we were talking about.
And you can't even smell it.
We're sitting here.
Yeah, feel for us.
I also want to be best friends with that chef.
You really do want to be best friends with him. Don't worry about it. But listen, speaking about toasted cheese, I actually want to talk about food delivery services. You know, we can obviously visibly see that the precautions that are being taken by drivers, and we also encourage everyone out there to be safe about the collection of deliveries. But that being said, you know, who is liable if COVID-19 is caught by either the driver or the recipient?
Okay, so interesting question, also one that lots of people are starting to interact with. So in our law, where liability lies where there's fault, so whoever's at fault is going to be liable. And this isn't just with COVID, but it's with all harm or damage. So if a driver does get infected, their employer could, in theory, be held liable for the damages, but it would need to be shown that that employer caused the harm either intentionally or negligently. So, and this would have to be a pretty nasty employer. If a recipient gets sick, so if you did order something and you get sick, then it could, and then if it can be shown that the driver is at fault, the driver could, in theory, be liable, or the employer could, in theory, be liable because of a rule known as vicarious liability, where the conduct of an employee is imposed on the employer. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because it's quite complex, maybe in another week. That all being said, this is quite theoretical because when it comes to COVID, you need to, one of the aspects for proving damages is that you would need to have proof that someone got sick from the driver. And this is just going to be very, very tough to do because of COVID. So I guess overall, what we all need to realize is that when we're ordering packages, going to restaurants, going to work, there is some aspect of risk involved because of COVID. And it's not the driver or the company's fault. It's the virus's fault. And that's the real bad guy. So it's something we should all remember.
And I think a lot of companies have been quite overt when dealing with any kind of delivery system now. There are so many messages saying, please, will you wear your mask? You can have a leave at the door option there. They do try to put themselves in the clear as much as possible.
Exactly.
Maybe going a little bit off topic now, because we've been experiencing some pretty horrendous weather, some winds that have ripped up trees and turned over cars, literally. When we look at really horrible weather, what are the delivery agencies' policies when it comes to bad weather? Can a driver refuse to deliver, or does he get penalized for a late or damaged order when it comes to an act of God, if you will, in that sense?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's one I've been pondering as well. You're never sure whether, when it's raining, you should order more, Uber Eats or order more food or something because, maybe it's going to put drivers at risk. At the same time, if they're not working, if no one's ordering, they're not earning anything. So I'm not quite sure what thing to do is there. But legally speaking, this is going to differ from company to company. So it's hard to say as generally. But what I can tell you is that any employee may refuse to carry out an illegal instruction or one that's unreasonably dangerous. So if a driver thought he or she was going to be put into unreasonable danger by delivering an order, they could refuse to comply, and then they would be protected by South African labour law. And that really goes for all employees out there. If your employer is going to put you into an unreasonably dangerous situation, you can refuse to comply. But as far as I know, this hasn't been tested in South African law. So, but we're unsure of the answer. But since delivery is becoming so popular, I guess it's only a matter of time until the law is forced to interact with this question, and we will get an answer. But I don't exactly know when.
Yeah, I think just with every discussion that we've been having, Eitan, it's going to be almost like we're going to have to take stock again post-COVID-19 and say, okay, this is a COVID law, this is a normal law, because it really has changed the game completely. And thank you so much, as always, an absolute tome of all things legal. We really appreciate your time. You can now go online and order yourself that toasted cheese and that straw.
I'm going to try and make it, actually.
Yeah, no, do it, man. And tomato soup, you can't go wrong. But, buddy, always wonderful to connect with you. Thank you so much.
You guys as well. Cheers.
Now, we hope that if you are making online deliveries, that you are always taking into account the safety of both that delivery personnel, yourself, and everyone in your surroundings, hey?
Yep, just wear your mask if you can, sanitize, always keep washing those hands. And as I said earlier, spare a thought for those guys working on the front line so we can get the stuff that we've ordered. We really do appreciate it.